Ali Abdaal just walked me through the 8-step blueprint he followed to escape his 9-to-5 job and build a multi-million-dollar business. Now, I know many of you watching feel stuck, either in a job you hate or a school system you know isn't preparing you for the real world. Ali is living proof that anyone can build their dream life and escape the 9-to-5. Imagine going from dreading your day job to creating a side hustle that consistently makes you thousands of dollars a month. By the end of this video, you'll have the only blueprint you'll ever need to build a profitable business and live a life of freedom, no matter where you're starting from.
Ali, what are we going to learn today? So, step 1, set the goal. Step 2 is going to be choose your adventure. Step 3 is just get started. Step 4 is master your time. Step 5 is take consistent action. Step 6 is get clarity on who you serve. 7 is monetize. And step 8 is scale.
This video is sponsored by Shopify, and the money from this video goes to fund people's dreams.
So, how do we set the goals?
Okay, well, I can tell you what worked for me. So when I was in medical school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought, this is great, going to med school, et cetera, et cetera. But then I started meeting doctors in the hospitals and stuff. And I was always interested in asking doctors who were a few years ahead of me. I was always interested in getting a sense of, do they actually enjoy being doctors? Do they enjoy their jobs? Because this was the thing I'd worked so hard to get into. And so I would ask them a simple question around like, hey, if you won the lottery, would you still continue doing medicine? And about half the people would say that they would leave immediately. One guy even said he'd leave in the middle of the operation. And the other half of the people would say that they would still do medicine, but they would go part-time, maybe 3 days a week. And I would ask them, okay, what's stopping you from going part-time? And the answer was always about money. It's like they didn't have enough money. Medicine in the UK and the NHS doesn't pay that much. They had mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. And so they had to work 6 days a week as doctors because they didn't have enough money to be able to cut down to 3 days a week. And so pretty much from the age of 18, after I started asking this question and read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which is really good, I realized that I wanted to set myself a goal of about £3,000 a month in passive income. I thought, man, if I could make 3K a month from a side hustle or whatever, it gives me the option to go part-time in my day job as a doctor. And so that was the goal in that sense. And the reason wasn't for the 3K a month in particular. I didn't really care about the money. I cared about the freedom that the money would provide me. And since having this realization and working towards it and now getting, way beyond the point where I was now able to quit the job and kind of do what I love. Now that other entrepreneurs and sort of people with jobs come to me for advice, I always say that step 1 is to set the goal, because the goal is the thing that sort of pulls you towards it. As you know, the journey of entrepreneurship is not easy. It's a lot of sort of ups and downs along the way. But having a clear, compelling goal to sort of pull you through, that really helps sustain the motivation and the discipline to actually do the stuff along the way. And for me, the thing that I was trying to avoid was, being in my 40s, working in medicine and being miserable, which was unfortunately what I saw of a lot of the doctors that I met in my day-to-day.
A lot of people that are in jobs in that way get trapped later on selling time.
Yeah.
It's unscalable.
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, cool. That's going to be my goal. My goal is to try and, I wasn't trying to be a millionaire or anything. I was just like, you know what? If I could work 3 days a week, I've got another 2 days to do what I love, and I can have a healthy and balanced life.
So, okay, £3,000 a month was your goal. I actually, by the way, when I was 15 years old, I was homeless. So I had to make money to survive. I couldn't get a job. So at the same point, I had to make enough money to get someone to live and have food. So it's quite a good motivator to have the financial goal. But was there any other element to you at that point? Was it simply money, or was there a hobby? Was there something you like doing that helps you define how you're going to make that money?
At the time, it was pretty much just the money. I was like, you know what? If I had to sell t-shirts to make that 3,000, I would sell t-shirts. I didn't really care about the specific vehicle that would get me there. I just knew that was the specific, that was the clear goal. Along the way, I kind of realized that, and sort of in my experience now, how do we get from A to B? Let's say someone is at the point where they've got a 9-to-5 job, kind of don't enjoy it that much. And the point of B, usually for a lot of people, is this idea of freedom. I want to have financial freedom, I want to have time freedom, and I want to have location freedom. I want to have the freedom to do what I love, to do what I want with the people that I want. Normally, the people I speak to, they're not really seeking the sort of Dubai boy millionaire yacht lifestyle. Normally, they're just seeking security, a sense of, I want the freedom to not have to stress or worry about the bills. So that was kind of what I was aiming for with this sort of 3K a month. I mean, 3K a month doesn't get you to full financial freedom or time freedom or location freedom, but it's a good start. and around somewhere between 3 and 5K, depending on circumstances, depending on currency, etc. Usually that's around the point where, in my experience, you can consider quitting the job, because that then covers a lot of people's bills. Obviously, your mileage may vary. If you live in San Francisco in a massive house and you have kids, like, this number might be a bit higher. But along the way, usually people realize that there's actually two other goals here. And those are the other two Fs, which is fun and fulfillment. Back in the day, people used to work purely for a paycheck. And if you'd asked, our granddads, do you love your job? They would have been like, well, what the hell are you talking about?
I don't even ask myself that question.
Yeah, it's not a thing that even crosses the mind. Whereas nowadays, what we want from work is not simply a paycheck. What we want is some combination of fun, fulfillment, and freedom.
This is why companies can't fulfill this. They weren't designed to give you this fun and fulfillment piece. They stick a table tennis table in there and try and make it happen, but they weren't designed that way.
Yeah, it's rare to have fun and fulfillment in a job. It's not impossible. And
I know a lot of people that do.
Yeah,
but it's rare.
It is rare. Yeah, and I really like the warning you have at the start of your book, which is that, like, hey, look, if you're happy in your life and happy in your job, don't read this book.
Yeah, don't get more knowledge; it might upset you.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So in terms of frameworks for setting goals, it's like, yes, it's good to have like a freedom number, and this is where the financial goal comes in. But increasingly, I've realized that it's also important to, I think of these ones as journey goals, and this one more like a destination goal. And that freedom is the destination that everyone is aiming for. But along the way, you kind of realize that even though freedom is the goal, freedom is not the point. Freedom by itself is actually not worth anything. Just like money by itself is completely worthless. Money and freedom are only useful when they are being cashed in for something else that you care about. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're on a desert island with like no one to give that money to buy stuff, it's completely pointless. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. You could have all the freedom in the world, but unless you have something to do with that freedom, you're going to end up depressed.
Yeah.
Because,
I've had freedom. I didn't work for 2 years. It's the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
I was literally lost. I didn't know what to do for years.
I've got various friends, including you, have sold companies, suddenly made
too much choice.
Tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And boom, suddenly it's like you kind of need something to do. So freedom and money are only useful insofar as you're cashing them in for fun and fulfillment. Fun, I think, when it comes to work or business, generally comes from work I love with people I love. And fulfillment, generally, in my experience, comes from growth and contribution. And so this is sort of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Like, I think most people, when starting out in the context of a day job, like when I had my goal of getting to 3K a month, I wasn't thinking, and along the way, I also want to do work I love with people I love, and I want growth, and I want contribution. I was fixated on the goal of financial freedom.
Which actually is a much healthier way to do it, because all of this stuff can come over time.
Yes, exactly.
But what I found is, if you don't have 3,000 a month, which we're going to help people try and figure out how to do today, if they don't have that, they're in fight or flight. Fight or flight is literally, I haven't got time to think about anything but pay the bills.
Yes, exactly.
And so they don't have time to think about fun or fulfillment or growth or contribution, because their mind literally is in fight or flight mode. Before we move on to choose your adventure, one thing I'd just say about this, I want to know if you think this is true. Part of this is also getting your costs down. So goals can be, one is get the money, 3,000 a month. The other is actually get your costs down.
Yeah. 100%.
Because your freedom comes from only needing $3,000 a month.
Yes.
Like I could live on $3,000 a month now easily, but because of my needs, what I've got used to, my life, inflation, I couldn't live on $3,000 now. So I've made that happen myself.
Yeah.
So getting it back down.
Yeah, 100%. Like the lower this freedom number is, the easier it is to get to. It's a lot easier to get to $3,000 a month than it is to get to $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
If you have the requirement that you get to $30,000 a month while you have a day job, good luck.
Totally.
I don't know many people who are making $30K a month in the context of also having a day job. I know plenty of people who are making like somewhere between 1 and 5K a month as a side hustle while having a day job.
I don't know how people do part-time $3,000 a month, even, to be honest. I know people are doing it, but I couldn't do it. I think, I wouldn't, I need good sleep. I need a bit of time relaxing, like that will take intensity, but we're going to show people how. But I do think people need to get their costs down, because if you get your cost down to only $2,000 a month, the good news is you can probably get there quicker. And that means you'll have freedom, ironically, quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't let the things own you and stop you having freedom, right?
Next up.
Choose your adventure.
Okay, now we've set the goal of like, we want to get to $3,000 a month or whatever the financial goal is. I have 2 frameworks. Should we? Yeah, fuck it. Let's go into the frameworks.
We can bleep that word out. That's all good. We were having a discussion off camera whether or not you guys want one route or the other. So we're going to go both routes to try and teach you how to do this.
I'm even going to zoom a little bit further out. So this is where, I don't know, this is where you are right now, maybe. These are 3 streams that all can get you to freedom. You have firstly the career stream. You have next the side hustle stream. and you have thirdly, the entrepreneur stream. Now, the way I think of this is that when you're choosing your adventure, you are like on this little ship, and most people are starting off in the career stream, depending, or like you're at college or university, you're training for some sort of...
the system wants you to do. Right?
Yeah, this is the sort of default...
Go to university, get a job.
Yeah, that kind of thing. The default career stream. Now, can you get to freedom within the context of the default career stream? You can, but it's hard and it takes a long time. This would be...
Well, Tim Cook's done it. But like we talked about this over there, so I'm stealing your line. Tim Cook has this, but the reality is you don't control your destiny. That's my theory of this one.
So this is where some people might have come across the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Mm-hmm.
The theory behind this being like, let's say you're in a career as a software developer and you earn $400K a year. Let's say your costs are only $50K a year. Mm-hmm. You can now save $350K a year, and if you do that for 10 years, 12 years, you'll have $4 million in the bank. With a 4% withdrawal rate. $4 million in the bank gets you a salary of $160K that you can take off, from the market.
Career stream, of course, the only problem with this is that 400,000 people just won't think they can get that sort of money in a job for quite a while. The satisfaction side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot less than that, but it's like the thing with the career stream is that if you want to become financially free in the career stream, it's pretty unlikely unless you have a massive salary, really low expenses, and you're willing to wait like a couple of decades to let the money compound in like an index fund or the markets or whatever. Having said that, for some people, they're like, that's totally cool. I don't want to start a side hustle. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I just want balance in my life. I don't want to have to work extra hard, et cetera, et cetera. And for them, the career stream is absolutely perfect.
Yeah. But by the way, for a lot of people misunderstand me because I promote entrepreneurship. I'm not actually promoting entrepreneurship. I'm promoting freedom of choice. So if you choose to do a career, you've got all the information of all the other things you could be doing, but you choose this, I'm all for it.
Great.
I just don't want people to feel trapped into doing that.
Yes, nice. Yeah, that's why I include it in here because it is a viable path. It's just, it's stable, but it is slow. And if you're in a job that you really like and you have the balance that you want and it's, giving you the freedom that you want, the fun and the fulfillment that you want, amazing. You do you. Don't bother trying to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Unless you really feel called to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So side hustle, how does that work?
So then at a certain point, if I may, you generally jump from the career stream and you're like, it's not quite all of the things that I wanted it to be. So you know what? Let me try and build a side hustle. Let me try and build some sort of side income so that I can get to my goal of freedom faster. Now this is faster, but it is, I sort of think of it like you're on this like river and you've got your ship, your like little career stream, which is like nice, gentle, slow and stable waters. Obviously some careers are higher risk than others, but in general, a career stream helps you along the way. Then you're like, all right, cool. On the side, I want to build a whole extra ship. I want to build my boat and wade it into the sort of side hustle stream. And then if you really want to go full time on that, now you're like in the entrepreneur stream where there's like rapids everywhere and you're like having to work a lot harder because most people think entrepreneurs work less hard than people in a career. But like how many entrepreneurs do we know who ended up, you trade your 9 to 5 for a 24/7, that kind of thing. So in the entrepreneur stream, which is stream number 3, you're really kind of high risk, high reward. It is much quicker to get to freedom through a side hustle and then even more quicker to get through full-time entrepreneurship. But it's like increased risk, but increased reward. And that's the thing with entrepreneurship is that it is risky. There is all those stats about how the vast majority of businesses fail. If your goals are fairly modest, then you're also less likely to fail. You're more likely to achieve the goals if the goals are modest, which speaks to your earlier point about keeping your costs low. If your freedom number is quote, only $3,000 a month rather than $30,000 a month, you are much more likely to succeed with building some sort of business. If you're not trying to build $1 billion company, you're much more likely to succeed as an entrepreneur. I think one of the issues with the entrepreneur thing is that in people's minds, entrepreneurship is like, oh my God, it's terrible. Like, I don't want to be Elon Musk. It's like, there's like a zillion stages of entrepreneurship before you get to Elon Musk levels or like Steve Jobs levels or anything like that. And it's worth appreciating that there are quite a lot of kind of like what some people call lifestyle businesses where, you're making a few $100,000, you're able to do what you love. You've got a few clients. You're like not working too hard. You've got a very small team of people that you like hanging out with.
Which is the majority of entrepreneurs, by the way.
Yeah.
That's success for the majority of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They have the freedom to work on what they want to work on. I think Elon Musk, because I love Elon Musk, but in a way that image has ruined entrepreneurship for a lot of people. They've misunderstood it.
Yeah, because people think it's like being an entrepreneur. Like I was speaking to a couple of friends as well who are like, they are entrepreneurs. They've got like their own, one of my friends has like her own like operations consulting business for businesses, but doesn't think of herself as an entrepreneur, because she thinks an entrepreneur is someone who goes on Dragon's Den to get investment, or an entrepreneur is someone who's trying to get us to Mars.
Yeah, I've been trying to come up with a new word, by the way, for then entrepreneurship to describe. Like I know someone who's an artist. She doesn't think she's an entrepreneur, but she definitely is, because she sells her paintings.
Yeah.
So she does what she wants with her time, building something she believes in. She controls her time and she sells stuff and makes money.
Yeah.
But she thinks she's an artist, not an entrepreneur. So it's all I see entrepreneurship is a business framework around what you work on, as opposed to like it being a particular thing like an Elon Musk or Steve Jobs type.
Yeah. One other way of thinking about this is, are you a crew on someone else's ship? Or are you building, captaining, owning your own ship? And to me, this is entrepreneurship. So your friend who's an artist might not consider herself an entrepreneur, but she is captaining her own ship.
Yep.
She is responsible for this ship making money. She's responsible for putting work out, for working as much as she wants, all that kind of stuff. If you are a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're an accountant, generally, unless it's your own business, you're working as a crew member on someone else's ship. It's totally fine being a crew member on someone else's ship, like we talked about, if you enjoy it and you've got informed consent about what the alternative path is like. But side hustle is when you're trying to build both of these at the same time. You're trying to maintain being a crew member on someone else's ship to help them get rich so that you can earn salary, while trying to build your own dream. And then at a certain point, you realize that actually the career is maybe holding you back. Maybe you want to go full-time on your own dream, and now you're captaining your own ship. And so to me, this is the definition of like a business owner or an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I personally had that journey. I at 15 years old, I started a gardening company. Eventually it worked, and then eventually it failed. But I made money before it failed. Failure doesn't mean you don't make money. So I made money, but then it failed. And then I actually got a job in a hotel for a little while. But in that hotel, during that time, I'd already got the bug of entrepreneurship. So I did a side hustle of an accommodation booking service. So yeah, I had my own ship, and then I got on someone else's ship, and then I built a side hustle of this other business that then worked, and I jumped ship into my own ship.
Yeah, so kind of going back to our sort of career side hustle, I think the other reason I like drawing this out is because it's not static. To your point exactly. You might start off in a career, you might build a side hustle. Maybe, you spend some time in there, you go full time with it, you do it for a while. Maybe you realize it's actually not for you and you go back into a career. And then, but along the way, you've picked up so many skills which actually help you in that career.
You'll probably get a better job.
Yeah, you probably get a better job. And then maybe at some point you're like, you know what, actually, I don't want the pain of full-time entrepreneurship, but I quite like having my own little gardening side hustle. While I'm in my career or whatever, I'm also doing my side hustle. A bunch of people who work with me, people in my team, a lot of them have started their own businesses, realized that actually full-time entrepreneurship is not for them. So now they're just doing it as a side hustle while working for me full time.
And by the way, again, I always think that one of the holy grails for this is own equity where you work. So you can actually work in a job. You'll be surprised how you could get equity. Everyone on my team has equity in the business. So I think that you can work in a business if you can still therefore own a part of the ship, to follow through on the analogy. So it might not be your ship. You might not have even created it, but you believe in the ship and its mission and where it's going, and you can ask for equity in it. So there's a mixture of this. I would say one other thing, you mentioned earlier, entrepreneur is risky. I actually think there's a slight misunderstanding about this. I don't think entrepreneurship is as risky as people say it is, especially if you're an artist. So you're doing what you love, it doesn't feel painful, you make money out of it. Of course, the risk is you don't make money out of it, but hopefully you will. If you're working for someone else, they could just get rid of you at any point. People don't actually see the risk, but you could work for 10 years at Facebook, help build that brand, and then Mark Zuckerberg let you go and you don't own anything, that's it. And you have to go get another job and start earning money somewhere else. You don't own equity in something is the problem. That's what I think people need to think about a little bit more. When choosing their adventure, I would say try to own equity on that adventure.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey guys, this video is sponsored by Shopify, and we use all the money we make in this video to fund people's dreams. So please listen. Similar to Ali, at some point in your entrepreneurial journey, you might have some kind of product or service that you want to sell. And Shopify allows business owners to do this effortlessly. Shopify is a powerful set of tools that helps you start and manage your business, whether that's being online or in person. And Ali and I both use Shopify to sell our products online. I'm not just saying this because they pay for this ad, I'm telling you it because I know it can help your business and it's a great product. There are so many ways that Shopify has made my life easier. Shopify Magic is a new AI-powered tool which helps you streamline your website processes, making it easier for customers to reach that checkout button. Shopify Magic also features AI-powered product descriptions and store design, saving you time and getting you the best results. The absence of any coding on Shopify allows you to build a website in a matter of hours, saving you valuable time. For me, I can't code. This product helps me get this done without needing to know any of that. With Shopify, you can grow your business from anywhere anywhere in the world and get real-time data on your sales at a click of a button using their amazing mobile app. Millions of businesses trust Shopify for their business, including me. So what are you waiting for? Sign up to Shopify using the link on the screen to get a free trial and start your business journey today.
Just get started. I think that leads quite well into just get started, which I will try to write. Just get started. Because a lot of this, and a lot of people that listen to our stuff on YouTube, they have all this information we've just given them. They know their journey. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
So what do we need to give people to help them do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing is to recognize that you're never going to have all of the information that you want. I think one of the issues with the schooling system is that it creates the illusion of certainty. You know that if you get a certain mark in a certain exam, that you're going to get an A star or an A or an 8 or a 7 or like whatever it's called these days. You know what the entry requirements are to universities. You kind of have a sense of when you're applying to a mainstream job. You know, they say how many UCAS points they need or like what the requirements are. You know that if you work your way up the ladder, there's like, 5 years later, I'll get a promotion. In medicine, for example, you know exactly what the path looks like. It gives you this profound sense of certainty. And people love the certainty. People would rather be unhappy than uncertain. Unfortunately, in the world of entrepreneurship, you have to recognize that there is no certainty. Yeah, sure, there are things that you can just stack the deck in your favor by watching all the videos you've made about this. But there's no certainty. And I think people are waiting for like, once I have that right idea, people have this thing of like, when the right idea strikes me, I will just know. I will just be so certain that I'll be able to start my business. But like, you've started loads of businesses over the years. How many of them have you felt, man, this is the perfect idea. I have so much certainty that this is going to work out.
Zero, really. I mean, no certainty, but desperation when I'm younger, that's for sure. And then as you get older, maybe you know yourself, so you're going to enjoy it. But like your book talks about, you've got to get that feeling of enjoying it. That's probably where but I already started, so I'm not this person because I had no choice but to start. Yeah. But a lot of people, unfortunately, they've got choices. To your point, they know certainty through a job. Go to university, I'll get a job. By the way, that's not certain anymore. Yeah. If you actually look at the stats, universities promise jobs, but they aren't getting the jobs. There's so many people coming out with degrees. But how do we get people to just start? What do you think the framework is for that?
Yeah, I think, okay, so if we say, for example, the content route, actually, there's a thing that Alex Hormozy talks about, which is the rule of 100, which is before you're ready, just do the thing 100 times.
Yes.
Like if you're starting a service business, do 100 cold reach outs. Yeah. If you're creating content, do 100 pieces of content, whatever the thing is. I think this is a little bit like overwhelming for most people. I call it the rule of 7. Okay. Just do 7 things. So in the world of content, for example.
6-minute apps or the 5-minute app. This is much better. Only 7 pieces of content.
Only 7. Yeah, 100%. So if you're going down the content, I teach a course, Part-Time YouTuber Academy. People pay, back when we were running it as a live cohort, people were paying $2,000 to sign up to my course. And like in the final cohort, for example, we had 1,000 people sign up. So I made a lot of money because they were paying like $2,000 to sign up. But of those 1,000, this was like a 6-week course, and each week we were just 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we were just asking people to submit just create one video. It can be as janky as you want, filmed on your phone. We give them all the resources, and we're going to give you feedback. You've paid for this. You're in a community. You've got people, cheering you every step of the way. The number of people who submitted the homework for week 1 was 50%. Half of the people who paid $2,000 to sign up to my course, literally half of them did not even take action on the first week.
Why didn't they do it?
They've paid the money and they've just not done it.
By the way, also validates that it's not always paying. There's something else, isn't it? Accountability? Partly? Yeah. Or what is it? Why do people do it?
I don't know. So I spent ages trying to figure this out because we've been running this course for a few years, and it amazes me how people will pay for the thing and then not actually take action.
Just like gym, people pay for gym memberships and don't go.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then
paying doesn't actually equal.
Yeah, 100%. So I realized that I also have this like. There was a friend of mine who's super into marketing, and he said something interesting. He said that around 50% of people who buy a Peloton bike never even take it out of the box. Yeah. Because when we buy something, we generally buy to fulfill some kind of emotional need. I've bought loads of courses on music theory, guitar, fingerstyle picking, how to play by ear on the piano. And I buy the course because I'm like rah motivation in the moment, thinking like, oh man, I could, that's a really cool riff that John Mayer played. Let me find a course that how to play this. And once I've bought the thing, I have this thing of like, I've taken the first step. I've won. Mm-hmm. And then I forget about the thing. I even bought access to the course because now I have to put in the work. Mm-hmm. And so buying the thing fulfills an emotional need. But when you realize that it actually takes work, half the people will immediately drop off. By the time we get to week 6 on the course, It's down to 15%. Yeah. The last time we ran this, 15% of people actually completed the thing.
That's actually, that's a high number.
It's a high number. Normally for courses, it's like 2%. And so we work really freaking hard. We reach out to people. We like hop on phone calls with them. We message them. We email them. And we get this number from 2 to 15%. But what it goes to show is that I think it's kind of reassuring. If someone is at this point in the video, most people will have dropped off this video looking at our retention curves in the first 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. By the time we got to this part of the video, the majority of people will no longer be watching. So if someone is still here at this point in the video, chances are they have more of an ability to actually follow through and take action on it. So
telling them just getting started, you are starting, they're actually doing it. Because I say that, and I didn't say at the intro of this, but I normally say, if you can't sit and watch this video, you're probably not going to make it. Because here is free knowledge from people that have done it, are going to help you. If you can't even listen to this, but I wonder though, okay, so is there a framework we can give people, assuming that people got this far in the video, that helps them keep going? Is there something that you've noticed about this 15% that keeps them going? Yes. I want to guess and say some sort of commitment or accountability, but...
Yeah. Okay, so I spent ages trying to figure this out. Like, of the people that stay consistent with something, so firstly, there's just getting started, just doing the thing 7 times, just making your first 7 videos, doing your first cold.
Trying to get into habit.
Yeah.
I think trying to build habit here, aren't you?
Exactly. And then sort of the next thing is, how do you stay consistent? And the reason we had that as step 4 is because step 4 is master your time. This is something I liked in your book. You had like the step ladder of excuses. Mm-hmm. And the thing right at the bottom is classic excuse, I don't have time. Mm-hmm. That is always the first excuse. The reason this is a very pernicious and like evil thing is because it is true. Mm-hmm. None of us has time.
No.
You don't have time to fly to Hong Kong and like do this podcast. No. You've got a zillion things on your plate. Yeah. I did not have time when I was working as a doctor, and even now, to make YouTube videos because there's always better things I could be doing. Mm-hmm. I wish I were more consistent at the gym. I could tell, back in the day, I used to tell myself I don't have time. I realized over time that I'm not allowed to say that phrase anymore. Anytime I say to myself, I don't have time, I reframe it as I'm actively choosing not to make the time.
Yeah.
Because we all have time. No one is being held at gunpoint and being forced to do things. Yes, I get it. In a world like I don't have kids yet. I've got a kid on the way. I've heard that when you have kids, suddenly you realize how much time you squandered when you didn't have kids.
Yeah.
You're like, holy.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I had so much spare time. I didn't realize it. You don't realize it. You don't have kids. You have time, more time than you ever imagined.
I find myself saying this, when I started actually working a job, you realize how much time you had at university. Holy frick. And like at school, I'm like, bloody hell. I thought med school was busy, but going into the hospital was optional. Mm. Now, I'm working full time. It's not optional anymore. I have to work 60 hours a week. Otherwise I'm going to get fired and I'm going to lose my license. And like, what? I had so much time. I was just squandering it. So now any kind of I don't have time, I reframe as I'm actively choosing not to make the time. This is usually the thing that holds people back, at least on the surface. People will say, oh, the reason I'm not consistent on YouTube is because I just don't have the time, or life got in the way. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, life will always get in the way. Mm-hmm. But the reason I said this is number 4, master your time, rather than be consistent. Everyone knows they should be consistent. Is that actually time management is a skill, and time management is a skill that can be learned. And that is, I've got hundreds of videos about this over the years. Someone can just look at my channel and see, like, there are a small number of very tangible things someone can do to actually make the most out of their time. Because if you take 2 different people, they're both trying to start a business. This is person 1, person number 2. Person number 1 is good at time management. Person number 2 is bad at time management. They've never read a book about it, never implemented any of the strategies, never watched a video about it, or they've watched the content, but then they're not actually taking action. We all have fundamentally the same 168 hours in the week, the same 24 hours in the day. Obviously, there are some people whose time is being used up by taking care of kids, or by cooking, or by cleaning, or whatever, taking care of a loved one, or health issues. All of that stuff aside, all else being equal, someone who's better at managing their time will squeeze way more value and output out of it than someone who's not. And I think people, in general, what I find is that the people who are more likely to stay consistent, generally, it comes down to 2 things. Number 1 is that they know how to manage their time. And number 2, they have found a way to enjoy the process. Mm. And so the time management stuff is the stuff I've been talking about on YouTube for ages. The enjoying the process stuff, if I may plug my book temporarily, is like, it's called Feel Good Productivity. It's about how to do more of what matters to you. And basically the thesis is that if we look at the science around this, if you can find a way to enjoy the process of doing something rather than simply being fixated on the outcome, you're way more likely to stay motivated and consistent.
True. It's so true. And I think your book describes this process so well. People won't even notice the time if they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like time becomes an insignificant thing. Like, I want to do this podcast. I want to be here. I want to get this knowledge from you to give to people for free. I will find the time because you found the time. I find the time. And I think that, but when people are listening to this, how do you know if you're managing your time well or not?
Yeah. So my barometer for this is, it's basically, so to me, good time management is simply doing what you intended to do. That's all there is. And so that has two bits. Number one is intention. And number two is action. So right now, we have blocked in our calendar that we're doing this podcast together. We have created the intention by literally just sticking in the calendar. And we're taking action. We're here doing this podcast, right? So this is good time management. Like, we have mastered our time here because we're acting in line with our intention. I think the first step is the really easy one, which most people don't do, which is just set the intention in the first place. I've lost count of the number of people I have in my course who ask me a question like, oh, I'm really struggling to be consistent on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, show me your calendar. Where is the time blocked in your calendar to be consistent to work on your YouTube channel? And they're like, oh, well, I don't really use my calendar. I'm like, wait, but you've got a job. Like, surely you use a calendar for meetings. They're like, oh yeah, I use my calendar for work, but I don't use my calendar for my side hustle. I'm like, bro, there's a reason every single professional uses a calendar for their work, because it's a way to manage your time, a way to at least set the intentions of what you intend to do with your time. I think if we approach the time outside of the 9 to 5 with more intention, just like we approach the 9 to 5, building a business is not something that happens easily. It's not something that happens on its own. You have to make the intention by putting the blocks in your calendar. And then the next question becomes, okay, once I've put the block on the calendar, am I actually doing the thing? So for example, one of my team members, Tintin, he has a side hustle. He's got a YouTube channel. But every Monday and every Tuesday evening from 6 to 10 p.m., he's just blocked it out. That's the time where he works on his YouTube channel. So every single week, he guarantees that he's at least got 8 hours cordoned off. Sometimes stuff comes up. Sometimes a friend will say, hey, do you want to hang out? And what's he going to say? He's going to say, nope, I'm sorry, I can't do Mondays and Tuesdays. He probably won't tell them because that's when I'm growing my YouTube channel. But he knows that obviously if a family emergency comes up, that is something different. But I'm amazed as to 95% of people who ask me about time management, or they're struggling with consistency with whatever the thing is, they just don't have it blocked in their calendar. And I'm like, bro, that's such an easy first step.
By the way, I think this might sound a bit elitist. I don't mean it to sound, but one of the best things I've ever did in the past was I hired a PA. And I didn't want a PA, and I recently hired a PA again. I didn't want a PA, but because I have to show them exactly what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And the interesting thing is, I've just got a new PA. I have to block out when I'm going to the gym, block out when I'm having time with my family. Like, am I doing Sunday? Am I doing Saturday? When am I available to do the work that she's planning for me? So it really helps you, if you use your diary properly, to literally use it for your life, not for work. Forget about work. Put what you're going to do in the diary, and then set the alarms on your phone. So that you basically know this is the time you're letting yourself down if you don't do the action.
Yeah.
Take consistent action.
So for me, I defined consistency on YouTube as being one video a week. To this day, I still think it works. Long form shorts, you need to post pretty much daily. But for long form videos like landscape videos, one a week is a pretty good cadence. I realized that actually making one video a week was really hard. But if I happened to be on night shifts at work and then I would have 2 days off, in those 2 days, I could film 5 different videos. And then I can just spend the evenings editing them. And so that helped me be consistent. The thing with consistency as well is that I think there's a couple of other things that really help. The first one is accountability. The reason why most people don't struggle with consistency in their job is because they have accountability. They have a manager who is looking out for them and looking to make sure they're doing the thing. Like, you wouldn't dream of not showing up to work because, there are consequences.
But I've just done this. So a colleague of mine said to me the other day, I want to be more famous on LinkedIn. I want people to know who I am. I'm like, okay, you post a video on LinkedIn. Every day you don't post, you have to give me £100. They haven't stopped. They have posted every single day since Adam Smith. Every single day since that moment. And it's not really the money. It's also the pride. It's also an element of this is so powerful.
Yeah. And I think putting money on the line is a super easy hack for this. There's so many people I know who have stayed accountable for doing something by literally just putting money on the line in your case. I think another thing is community, which sort of relates to accountability.
Yeah.
If you have people around you who are also taking consistent action, you're just more likely to do the thing. I would be in way better shape if I had people around me who were in good shape, because they'd be going to the gym. If you can find a way to build a community around you, either in real life or even online, a community of people doing the thing, it makes it a lot easier to stay consistent with the thing. I think, for example, a key one for this is podcasts, videos, etc. You know, there's that whole thing of like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think it's sort of, it is also true that you kind of become the average of the 5 voices you hear most often. So if someone, for example, has been watching all of your stuff and listening to all of your YouTube videos that you've ever put out, and they buy your book or listen to your audiobook or whatever the thing might be, you are going to be one of the key voices in their life. And therefore, the thought of starting that business or staying consistent with it, now all of a sudden it's like, it's not that hard, because like they've seen that other people are doing it. In my days of trying to stay consistent on YouTube, every single day while driving to work and back, I was listening to podcasts from other YouTubers talking. There was the Video Creators podcast, I think Media podcast. Later, Colin and Samir started doing interviews, and then John Yusha started doing interviews. And I was just absorbing every piece of advice I could possibly around other people doing YouTube. And they were all talking about how consistency was really difficult for them and how they managed to make it work. And so all of those things where I felt like I had this online community of people. They had no idea who I was, because I was nobody at the time. They had no idea who I was, but I got so much inspiration and motivation out of hearing their voices in my headphones and in my car while driving to work and back, of like, it's so much easier to take action when you have voices around you. Obviously, real life is great, but like online.
This is how you can hack mentorship, by the way. You just pick who you want your mentors to be and consume their content. You don't need them to sit with you necessarily. You just absorb their energy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But did you have any accountability? Like if you didn't upload, you wouldn't make money, right? So the freedom was also not going to happen as part of it.
Yeah, so for me, I found that like just committing myself to 1 video a week and just sort of essentially making it as a rule for myself. Or like, okay, I have to upload a video every single week. There were some weeks when I was in the middle of like my finals for medical school where I was like, am I really going to upload a video this week? My mum saw me filming a video because I went home for the weekend just, as a break before finals. And she was like, what the hell are you doing? Like you're filming a video when you've got your final medical school exams like on the Monday. What the hell is wrong with you? And I couldn't really explain. I was like, no.
She knows now.
Yeah, she knows now. Yeah, it worked out. But not breaking the chain, no matter what. Right. I found that actually a thing that really helps with consistency is lower the bar.
Right.
So let's say
a week. That's all. Don't break that.
Yeah, 1 a week also, but also it doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist.
Right.
So there were a few videos that I posted in that time that were really crap. For example, going to the gym. Some, people who are more consistent with the gym say that if you don't feel like it, you just go, you do a jumping jack or like one stretch, or you just look at yourself in the mirror and you walk back out again. The point is you haven't broken the streak. You've just lowered the bar of what counts as a win.
Oh my God, I've got some great news, guys. Thanks to you and your support of this channel and what we do, this book just became the #1 book on the Sunday Times bestseller list. #1, because you bought it and you supported our mission to fund people's dreams and help people do what they love. You can now go review it on Amazon. If you enjoyed the book, go review it. The link's down below. It will make a hell of a difference. Thank you so much for supporting what we're doing. Let's get back to the video. Next one is get clarity on who you serve.
Yes.
Like this one.
This subject I've always found interesting on YouTube as well, trying to figure out who's actually watching your content and so on. But
yeah, when you're big like you, then it's like really hard to figure out.
Like me. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're bigger than me.
In the early days of my channel, when I had like 63 subscribers, it was fairly easy to figure out who I served, in that I was serving other people trying to get into med school.
Right. Did you know that those 63 subscribers could just be 63 people in India that accidentally got the video, or slept overnight and the video kept playing?
I mean, yeah, it could be, but like it was a video about how to get into med school. It's like it's unlikely that someone who's not in that audience.
But did you label it up that way? Did you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to title it like this video will change your life or anything, because trying to title things like that gets it very broad and you don't quite know. I was just like super focused on like, okay, what's the point of me making YouTube videos? Well, the point is to get people to buy my course.
So the thumbnail said how to get into medical school.
The title said how to get into med school. Yeah.
Right.
And the thumbnail said BMAT section 1 or whatever the thing might be.
Wow.
I was just like super specific.
There's also targeting on YouTube for that person who would need that to watch that. That feels quite hard to make sure that person. You put it in the group. You posted the video in the group.
No, I never even post. But the YouTube algorithm. That's the whole point of the YouTube algorithm. It serves the right video to the right person at the right time. So
that's an interesting insight.
So it's niche, but like if someone's trying to get into an MBA program, they are guaranteed they're going to be searching on YouTube for a GMAT exam.
Right. So you leverage search.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, leverage search right at the start. These days now it's more like, we try and go broad, try and get on the homepage.
Right.
But getting on the homepage versus search is like 2 very different strategies for YouTube. Right. But the reason I mentioned it, because, coming back to our whole thing, is like the goal is to understand the whole 3K a month thing. Generally, my model for this, which I now teach to my students in YouTuber Academy, in the content stream, you want to try and sell something for $300 and sell 10 of those a month. And now you're making 3K a month.
That works in the service space too, because you can get, if you're a social media manager for helping someone post up social media, and you say, I'll manage your posts for you, £300 a month.
Yeah.
10 people, that's it. Same. Exactly the same.
I mean, to be honest, like, so I had a good chat with a mutual friend, Dan Priestley, about this. And he was saying for services, he doesn't go any less than 2,000. He tries to get, I don't know, 1.5 a month. Like, if you can get 3 clients every 2 months paying you $2,000, then you're making.
He's more famous than a lot of our listeners, mind you. But yeah, I think that
he is. But like, you can. The thing with $2,000 is that $2,000 is not very much for a business. It's a lot for an individual. So doing B2B services, $2,000 are generally much more affordable. Whereas for a normal person, a consumer, $300 is more affordable in terms of like buying a course or whatever the thing is.
Absolutely true.
But,
I actually sold to CNN a £1 million service, and originally I priced it at £450,000, and they said it was too cheap. In fact, they were worried I couldn't do the work.
Oh wow!
So it's absolutely true. Sometimes it is. I'm actually going to retract what I just said there. I think people should think bigger than they think they should.
Yeah, and I think the reason people don't is because everyone watching this is that you are a consumer, right? Like, I'm a consumer. Like, we buy stuff.
Yeah, so that is expensive as a consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
And as businesses, it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, exactly. When you start thinking like a business, it's like, one of my team members realized this the other day. I hired a graphic designer to do a rebrand of our stuff, and I thought I was going to pay him £500. And a few months later, like 2 months later, he sends the invoice, and turns out, he was charging like £5,000 instead of 500. And I looked at the invoice, and I looked at the original message, and I realized I'd misread what he said. And so Tintin, one of my team members, was in the room, and I was like, no, $5,000, whatever.
Right.
And Tintin said his mind was blown in that moment because he realized that to me as a business owner, there is no difference between £500 and £5,000.
Especially if the service is good.
Yeah, exactly. The service was good. Yeah. For Tintin, £500 versus £5,000 is like an entire 2 years worth of his savings.
Yeah.
That's how much different it is between $500 and $5,000 for a consumer. But it's like a meaningless tax write-off for a business.
That's so true.
And when people realize this, you realize, holy shit, if I'm trying to sell gardening services to a homeowner, I probably can't sell that for $2,000 unless it's sort of like in Hampstead. Even then, probably not. If I'm trying to sell tutoring for kids trying to get into med school, that's price anchored because they're consumers. But if I'm trying to sell social media content marketing services to a private practice, the sort of doctor surgery that I know is doing millions in revenue, $2,000 is absolutely nothing.
Totally.
If I'm trying to sell content creation as a service to a startup where I can look up their records and I can see that they've raised 50 million in funding, $2,000 is an absolute drop in the ocean. It's almost too cheap. And so shifting from thinking in terms of selling to consumers to selling to businesses, that seems to be the hack for most people I know who do service-based businesses.
My favorite story is the lady that designed the Nike logo, right? She charged $300 to charge the Nike logo.
Really?
And then later, I might have got the number wrong, might be but around a very small amount of money. Yeah. And then, of course, Nike blew up and it did really well. And the Nike founders went back and gave her shares, stock in the company worth millions.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because as a startup company, actually this was their budget. But because the company became so valuable, they feel like that they are undercharged. She'd been underpaid, and they went back and compensated her properly, even though they didn't have to. Yeah. So that £5,000 example, also there's an element of like, well, if he delivered, it doesn't matter. Even if it was personal, if they actually delivered what you needed and it created the value of £5,000, then it doesn't matter anymore.
So next is monetize.
But the thing with monetization is that the mistake people make is that they think it's like, okay, build the product or whatever the thing is, and then step number 2, sell the product. This is actually the wrong order to do it in. You want to first sell the product and then build it. So the easy thing here is a wait list. This is what our friend Dan Priestley also talks about. Before building anything, you want to validate that the demand for the thing actually exists. So you get people to sign up for a wait list. Let's say I was writing a new book and I was like, I'm not really sure. I don't want to spend all the time writing a book because it takes ages, before knowing that people actually want this, or building a new course or a new piece of software.
You are writing a new book, by the way.
I'm writing a new
book. So why
yeah.
have you not done this?
I have enough. I have a large enough audience and enough.
I'm going to
conviction.
link down below. Why don't we do it? A link wait list for your book too. Down below.
Yeah,
Come on, let's do it.
I am okay. The more pertinent that is that I am building software, and for software I have a lot less conviction because I'm kind of new to the software thing.
Oh, okay.
So step 1 is to build.
What's the software, by the way? Just to share with people.
We are building a product called Life Compass, which is going to help you figure out what to do with your life and take consistent action towards your dreams. For that, Izzy, my wife, is in the process of creating a sales page, which is going to have some text on it, and it's going to have an email sign up, which is like, hey, if you're interested, join the waitlist. Now, this costs us basically nothing to put together. It is just one page that says, okay, we're building this app that will do X, Y, and Z. If that sounds interesting, join the waitlist. And then we're going to mention this to our audience in my newsletter and Instagram, Izzy's Instagram, whatever the thing is. And we'll be able to measure how many people actually clicked on this, and then how many people signed up. So this would be like the conversion rate. And based on this, we can get a sense of, okay, did 3 people sign up? Did like 100 people hit the waitlist page, but 3 of them signed up? That's a terrible conversion rate for a free waitlist. If 100 people hit the waitlist page and like 90 of them signed up, we're like, damn, okay, there's something here. If we email it out to our audience and 10,000 people join the waitlist, that's a very different result than if 3 people join the waitlist. And it's super easy to create a waitlist. So you create the waitlist first.
It's also, by the way, if you wanted to raise money for your business, and you can go, we did this with HelpBank, by the way. Yeah. We put a waitlist up and 11,500 people signed up wanting the product.
Nice.
So that's how you find out. You can go to investors there and say, we know people want this product. Look, these people have said they want it.
Exactly. Step number 2 from the waitlist is the pre-sale. So I'm going to use the example of my wife, Izzy, was going to create a course on how to learn Mandarin because people kept asking her about it. She built a waitlist by saying, hey, I'm working on some resources for learning Mandarin, enter your email to sign up. She got about 5,000 people to sign up. Then what she did was that she, after a while, after lots of sort of being talked into it and, struggling to kind of get over the fear of selling, eventually she created a page, which was a checkout page that was like saying, hey, look, this is going to be 50% off. And it's only going to be for the first like 30 people or something like that. And there was a buy button. And she emailed the waitlist saying, hey, would you like to be a beta tester for the course? I'm going to give it to you for 50% off. And, along the way, I just love your feedback. And she got about $10,000 worth of sales from purely the pre-sale. She had not actually made the course at that point, but the pre-sale was enough to validate that, hey, $10,000 worth of people. So like, what was that? Whatever that is. Because she was selling it for $300, whatever. $10,000 worth of people are willing to actually put money on the line. Because if you're going to ask people, hey, would you be interested in this product? People might say yes. But if you ask them to get out the credit card and pay for it, all of a sudden you're getting a sense of what's the real demand on this thing. Mm-hmm. So $10,000 was enough to validate the idea. And then she spent like 6 months actually making the course, build, and now it's on sale for her audience. Mm-hmm. But if she hadn't done these first 2 steps, this is the mistake so many people make. It's like they spend months and months and months building the product and then realize that actually there's no demand for it. Whereas you can make a waitlist in like half an hour. You can build a checkout page in like a day. And now you've saved months and months and months of effort just to validate the idea in the first place.
Scale. A lot of people are scared to scale. My experience has been a bigger business is easier to manage than a small business.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot easier.
15 people?
Well, no, there's a grey area, isn't there? We were talking about this off camera for you guys to know. But I think there is a grey area, which is like small companies, really lifestyle, fun. Of course, there are businesses, anomalies like Telegram that will have maybe 20 people and somehow they're $1 billion company. But most companies, not going to be massive revenue, the small team, but you can have a good life. Middle ground, small team, gets a bit bigger, 15, 20, 30 people. Wow, that's a lot of work to manage that team. You can't afford middle management and you're having to be there to make it work. And it gets quite scary. But I got to 60, 70 people full time. It was actually quite good. I could afford middle management. Eventually I brought someone else in to run the company.
Yeah.
And that for me was like, wow, I should have scaled it earlier. It took me about 10 years to realize that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm on about 20 people at the moment, and I'm like in the process of sort of scaling back a little bit. So we've got a few team members who are leaving, and we probably want to replace them because I'm feeling the pain of like around the 15 to 20 people thing, where we do have middle management, but fundamentally I'm still like running the business, which is like.
But there's a lesson in that. I think it's also you've done what you like and you've brought a lot of value, but you're the face of the company, which is when people are listening. I think personal brand has its downside. It's not really easy to flip it into letting someone else do the content, for example.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So it's you carrying potentially as the face of the company all the content.
Yeah, in many ways, like I often think like I don't really have a business. I just have a very high paying job because if I stop doing stuff, the business doesn't grow. And if I suddenly stopped making YouTube videos, it would last for a little bit with the revenue from the old back catalog and like course sales trickling in, but it would fall off a cliff pretty quickly.
I think people should actually understand this concept of running a bigger business is easier than running a small business. So when they go into the business, they should actually have a framework. Do they want to have pain for a few years to grow a business big so they can have time off? Or do they want a lifestyle business?
Yeah. So I'm very keen on the lifestyle business approach where, keeping it small-ish, keeping it very profitable, and focusing on the business serving me rather than me serving the business. And I know that, I've heard a lot about other entrepreneur friends kind of say this, that like at a certain, like beyond about 40 people, 50 people, when you've got the proper professional structures in place, it becomes super chill and you can just be an owner rather than the operator. Personally, for me at this stage in life, I don't think I want to go through that pain, because the end destination of, also like the business is built around my personal brand. I can't imagine unless I'm trying to go down the Tony Robbins route, which seems like a lot of work. To me, the reason I started this was to buy my freedom. And now I have the freedom. And it's like, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is that at the start of the journey, freedom comes from making money, because you make enough money to buy an appropriate, a sufficient amount of freedom. Quit the job, yeah. for example. But beyond a certain point, freedom actually comes from leaving money on the table. Right now, we'll do a couple million in profit USD this year, probably like 1.8, 1.9, something like 2 million, who knows, depending on how the last couple of months go. If I'd made twice as many videos and done twice as many sponsorships, I could have made an extra £1 million. But do I want to be tied into that lifestyle? Not really. I'm happy to leave that £1 million on the table for the sake of my freedom. I could always launch new products and new courses every month and all this kind of stuff. But the price of freedom at a certain point is leaving money on the table. And so I think this is the thing with lifestyle businesses, is that lifestyle businesses give you freedom where you have a small team and you're very profitable. In your case, having a team of 60 and hiring someone to run the business also gives you freedom. But on the other side,
I don't want that again, but
there's a lot of pain that you're going through.
I now have a team of 18, but they're all owners or in control of the business themselves. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't have pain at 18, which is, I just realized that. I have a team of 18, but I don't have that much pain. But the freedom point, interesting though, because in a way, using you as a case study, like you're not as free as you could be.
Yeah.
Right. So it's both, you have to accept the lack of freedom in some respects. Making $2 million a year profit, you're the head of it.
Yeah.
That's not total freedom.
It's not total freedom.
But it's freedom you've accepted as balance.
Yeah. If I was content to make 200 grand, I would be a lot more free. But I don't want to drop from 2 million to 200 grand. Yeah. And so I'm willing to pay the price of doing a certain number of videos every month and like showing up for my courses and communities and like doing the stuff. Conveniently, I also happen to mostly enjoy the process. There are times where I don't, where I'm like, it's kind of annoying, but I think every job has bits of it that are kind of annoying. And you just sort of, I sometimes think, would I choose to go back to medicine? Absolutely not. Would I choose to go work for someone else? Absolutely not. So broadly, I love what I'm doing, but there are days where I'm like, do I really feel like filming this video? Not really, but we've got to do it anyway.
But it kind of goes back to the points you were mentioning earlier, are you learning? Yeah. Are you growing? I think this is why purpose is so important. Because if, I don't need to work. I had total freedom and it made me miserable. But now I'm building something and I do want to build a big company that helps a lot of people. But my freedom is definitely getting taken away from me. Yeah. But what I'm doing is I'm giving up equity. I'm leaving money on the table, you could argue. It's another form of leaving money on the table. I'm giving up equity, however, to empower other people for them to do it, not just me.
Nice. Yeah.
And I think that putting money on the table, there's different forms of it. But in a way, you're saying, I'm willing to do less content and have a better life, still making profit, that's fine. The way I'm doing it is I'm giving up the profit that we are making because we're doing more to other people to do the work.
Yes, exactly. And like an accountant might say to you, Simon, what are you doing? You've got a big audience. You don't need to incentivize these people with equity. Sure. Why would you bother? Yeah. And you're like, well, I'm leaving the money on the table because I want more freedom, because I want them to feel more empowered, to feel ownership. They're going to do a better job. They're going to take more responsibility on. They're going to land Richard Branson of the class or whatever.
Totally.
Without me having to be the one driving the whole thing. And you're making that decision because...
It's also a moral code thing for me at this stage. It's like, I want to make everybody rich. I made myself rich. How you actually make people rich, how you make yourself rich is you figure out a way of how to make everybody else rich. That's it. So if I can make my whole team rich, well, that's more people helping more people with their dreams, isn't it? Because they can afford to do that. If I can give everyone financial freedom, then they're free to go and help people for free, right? But I think it's really hard. Like I know a lot of entrepreneurs that won't give up equity and they want scale and they give up a lot of freedom for it. Yeah. And they don't understand this concept that leaving money on the table isn't just the amount of money you could make. It's also ownership in the business.
Yes. Yeah, I think another interesting thing about leaving money on the table is like, let's say I was still working in medicine 5 days a week. These days, you can actually go down to 4 days a week or 3 days a week.
Right.
You just make less money.
Right.
And so if you're comfortable leaving that money on the table or you're physically able to leave that money on the table, you've actually just bought your freedom without having to start a side hustle by just being comfortable with that.
Perfect.
And so at a certain point, the cost of freedom is the money you leave on the table.
I think it's also stages in life. Like, I think to our young audience, when I was younger, I didn't mind not having freedom. I wanted financial security.
Yeah.
So I will sacrifice freedom to get to that £3,000 a month job. But once I've got to the £3,000 a month, the hardest thing is actually being happy with that.
Yeah.
Back to keeping your costs down. Like, I don't need to own a boat. I've got a friend who owns a boat.
Yeah.
So, but would I like to own a boat and show off my boat? There's something about me that would, but I'm not willing to give up my freedom for that possession. Yeah. So I think a lot of people, it's very discipline at this stage is quite important for people.
Yeah, I think so. I think also for young people, like when I was young, I was willing to trade off a lot of freedom, knowing that I could buy freedom later, knowing that like at this season of life, when I'm in my 20s and, it's COVID and I have nothing to do, I may as well just grind super hard on the business to try and get that to, a few million in revenue, a few million in profit, whatever the thing is. Knowing that once COVID lifts, once I get, hopefully end up in a relationship, get married, have a kid, at that point, I will value the freedom, the time freedom much more than the freedom to play more video games when I was in my 20s. And so I sort of predicted that, which is why I was willing to sort of have more of a season of grind when I was in my 20s. Whereas now that I'm 30 and I've got a kid on the way, I'm like, the kid hasn't popped out yet. So I'm still like, all right.
But you're enjoying the process of being pregnant and you're enjoying, being...
I'm not being pregnant, but...
we are being pregnant.
Sure, yeah.
My wife and I still always say that. We are pregnant. I'm clearly not pregnant. Look, this knowledge is so valuable. Thanks for sharing it. I hope you guys got a lot of value for it. We're off to have some chicken now. See you later. Bye.
I keep meeting people who feel stuck. They're tired, not because they're lazy, but because nothing feels meaningful. They overthink everything and still don't know what they want. They bounce from one thing to the next, hoping that this one will finally feel right. And deep down, they start believing there's something wrong with them. I've seen this over and over, and I know what's missing. On May 14th, I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm hosting a free live session where I'm going to teach you what that missing link is and how to finally have all the essential pieces to start building the life you've always dreamed of. I'm not selling you anything. I don't want anything in return. I just want you to have free mentorship. I want you to have the help you need. And if you show up, I promise you, I'll show up for you. It's not motivation, it's not hype. It's the one thing that finally made life make sense for me and the thousands of others I know that are building something they love. If you ever felt you're missing something, this is for you. Join me live.